you were little?
Outside of anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, no.
Well, it would be developmentally delayed with autistic features.
Okay.
If you want diagnosis.
I'm sorry,
As far as connecting, going back to that, was it that you just didn't feel the empathy, or you didn't feel love, or I mean, like what exactly are you talking about? Is that you couldn't put yourself in someone else's, mindset, that empathy, or?
It was there, but it was difficult for me to connect to that. As Shelley said, I cried during graduation, and I could feel, but it would take some very significant types of events or things to cause me to connect with that feeling. It wasn't a normal part of me, but it was there, and I wanted it because I liked how it felt to feel, even when it wasn't a positive feeling. I liked how it felt. It felt normal. It felt natural. I always had difficulty just connecting with it, and being able to have it be there a lot versus just at times when certain things happen. So it was always there. One thing I want to say about our son and other autistic kids that I've spent time with it is they all have feelings. In fact, in some cases, my sense is they actually have more emotional feelings and more empathy than other kids do. It's just very, very difficult and sometimes impossible for them to connect with those feelings, for them to understand them, and for them to express them.
I'm curious about your physical coordination.
Yeah.
Have you been able to improve it, and if so, what have you done? Or are you still a klutz?
No, I'm not a klutz. I'm not a klutz. Never was a klutz. I just couldn't do wasn't good at football, wasn't good at basketball. Now I made the basketball team in high school because I was tall. But they didn't pass the ball to me because that was bad news. But I was good at defense and stuff. No, that was something that I think I became better with it, as I grew up. But I went into long distance running, and you don't have to be that coordinated for that. And that's what I did. But no, I just assumed that, hey, I'm just not good at sports or stuff, which went into the whole thing about being a wimp and all that. So it just, it was this whole thing. And I've come right back to you, sir. Go ahead.
I think your story is just fascinating. I could listen to you all day long.
Thank you.
But I wanted to know, did your son's diagnosis spur you to write the book? Or would you have written it anyway?
My son's diagnosis did not spur me to write the book, initially at least. I wrote the book several years after that. And, when my son was diagnosed, life was over and I was ashamed. I couldn't tell people, I couldn't say the word autism and autistic for 2 years. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get it out of my mouth to tell anyone. And it wasn't because I was ashamed of him. I wasn't. I just couldn't accept it. And it was very difficult.
I understand. I'm a mom.
Yeah, no, you can understand it even more so than I can as a dad. It was very, very difficult. And it wasn't until I came to grips with my own situation and said, okay, I want to do this, I want to communicate this, when I could start saying to people that he was autistic. I mean, even with his teachers, who knew, I couldn't use that word. I would stutter when it came time to use that word, just because I just couldn't say it.
Well, thank you for writing this book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very helpful.
Thank you. Well, that's what I really wanted to communicate, is that for me to be as hopeless as I was, again, in that situation, even though you can look at me and say, okay, I've been successful, I felt absolutely hopeless. I felt just like any other dad does. So it's important for people to realize that it's not a life sentence, and that these kids all have hope in their own ways.
Well, and also I would just add, as a parent, that what you think is going to happen has nothing, well, it can have something to do with what happens, but it may not have much to do with what happens. The kids are the ones that decide the most what happens.
You're CEO of a company, and it would seem that you would be very good at this particular instinct in sizing people up, knowing where they're coming from, what's their motivation. How would you assess your ability of doing that, of knowing whether someone means well or whether they don't mean well behind certain questions or that they ask them? Do you have trouble with that?
No.
How's your theory of mind, John?
I'm very intuitive with that, and I'm very good at that, and I think that's because of my focus and because of how much I've learned to be through modeling with other people. So I've observed so much, and I've keenly observed where I think that's really helped me have that type of analytical ability.
So it's never been a problem in your life, though?
Well, no, I mean, in my adult life, it hasn't. I mean, I think that when I was younger, I think I did have a problem with that. I did have a problem understanding where people were coming from, or what they wanted or what they were all about, and I had deep trouble connecting with them. So I wanted their attention, so I would tease them, or I would do something that would bother them or upset them, when all I wanted was their positive attention. So yeah, I had problems with that.
And that was up until college, you said?
That was up until elementary. That was through elementary school. And
inclusion facilitator for our school district. And every case is different. And we're in the midst of kind of redefining what our program is going to look like. So do you have any suggestions on where to even begin? Like your son in kindergarten, is he fully included?
No, not yet. What district are you?
ABC uniform.
Okay, sure. I'm at USC. I go to school with a lot of your colleagues in the education program. So he's in a special day class program right now in kindergarten. We are going to mainstream him next year. We don't know if we're going to mainstream him in a kindergarten, again, have him repeat that or go into a first grade classroom. But
Repeat kindergarten. Go ahead.
okay. So, right, repeat. Thank you. My wife thanks you. I think that there's two things as an educational practitioner to understand. The first is that these kids are very unique, and there's a lot of, not from your part, but from the part of a lot of other educators, there's a misunderstanding of what autism is and the expectations and so forth. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think it's very difficult for school districts right now, because I'm in school with a lot of superintendents and assistant superintendents and principals, because there's a real tension between dollars and there's a scarcity of resources. So the special education programs, because they're unfunded, are looked at as a drain on the general education programs. So I think having that increasing that awareness with staff in general about autism and these types of stories is really key. And I think that the research, as well as a lot of examples like me, are that when kids are in a mainstream environment, they do better. But I also think, if I can, one more thing, is that the kids have to have an awareness of this.
Well, okay. Yeah, I have lots of questions. That would have been one of them, because there seems to be...
Well, I'm sticking around afterwards, so we can talk, but...
No, ask your follow-up question, and then we'll take one more question, and then John will be available.
Well, just that. Do we come right out and explain what autism is? It's very prevalent now. You're going to school with them. You always will. These are the kids that are in school with you. Or is the school, because I've got parents too, who don't want anyone to know. They don't want their kids to be any different.
Right.
Yet we know of strategies we can use. They appear different, but they benefit the child. So we're not even sure how to...
Yeah, that's a big question. I think that, I think the parents' wishes, as a parent, I think the parents' wishes are important. And I can understand, my mother wouldn't have wanted the other kids to have known. And I understand why. Because the label issue is a big issue. At the same time, I also think when it is present or it's prevalent, it's important that the other kids know. And what I've witnessed in mainstream environments is a lot of the other kids want to help and want to kind of get with that child, and when they have an understanding. But there also has to be structure and supervision around that as well, or you're asking for trouble, in my view.
Is there anybody that didn't ask a question that wants to ask one? No, she did ask a question.
No, she already almost asked a question, but I wanted to ask. I can ask one more question.
All right, go ahead.
Especially now, because you have experience with autism and with therapy, what kind of settings you and your wife created for your child? How many hours he's in school, what kind of therapy he's receiving at home and in school? Is he going to the hospital for therapy, and etc.?
So he's in his local school district in a K through 2 SDC program. He gets pull-out services for adaptive PE, for OT and speech. He also receives regional center services, behavioral ABA services. Which company? He's with Nyanza, but we're looking at we're down in Orange County, but we're looking at making a change with that. We also have him in we also have him in private therapy as well. We have him doing, we in the past have him doing karate. We have him doing AYSO soccer, which has a great program for special needs kids. And you know, I'm looking at our son, like, oh, he can't play soccer because of some of his. He could run around and stuff, but he's not going to be able to play soccer. I mean, he's going to run away from the field if we give him a chance. But I was worried about that at first, but we got him there. And it's great. They have a great program. They have teenage mentors that are helping with the kids, and he plays, and he kicks the ball and so forth. I mean, they have to make sure he stays on the field, but it's a great experience. I never had that experience when I was that age, and I think those programs, in addition to just the therapies, those types of experiences, karate, swimming, things like that are great. I mean, our son loves to swim, absolutely loves to swim, and those are ways that they can physically build up, but that they can also do things that are fun for them, that are productive. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry. Sure. I just discovered this game is called the Ungame game, if anybody's ever heard of it. And if you Google it, it will come up. I think it's fantastic for communication for all children, but I think especially I've been using it with some of the students that I have. And it's fantastic.
So I want to thank everybody for coming out today in the rain, and thank you for the questions. And John will be here afterwards. I think he's interested in getting his message out further. If you want to talk to him about how he might do that.
Where do we get the book?
It's on Kindle, iTunes, and Barnes & Noble right now. It's also selectively at bookstores, but that's just happening right now.
You don't have them here?
No, we're not allowed to sell them here. We're not allowed to give them here. It's called Am I Still Autistic? But yeah, I'm here. I'm happy to answer any questions. My email address, if any of you want to email me or have any other questions, if you'd prefer to do that, is johnhull@usc.edu. And you can feel free to email me too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.